G'day subscribers, viewers and those new to the channel. Gary here from Platform 1 MRC. Glad you can join me again. In the previous October layout update, Scratch Building with Card, I mentioned there'd be a part 2, which is coming, but I've decided to do it into a 3-part series now. Because of all the little intricate details and everything that I've had to record and put onto the building itself, I was hoping that we'd get into the painting stage and perhaps the awning stage of the building, but that's never happened. So the awning and the painting weathering will be in part 3. So without any further ado, let's get into part 2, which is all about adding the details such as the roller doors, ducts, lighting. I didn't mention lighting in the first video, but thank you to my mate Michael Grace for suggesting I put in some lighting, so that'll all be explained in this video. Let's get to it. Cheers, Gary. Okay, first thing we're going to do is, we know our measurements of our roller door. It's 11 foot high by 10 foot wide. So we're going to take our evergreen styrene and we're actually going to overcut it. So our 11 feet sides will be cut to 12 feet, which I've done here. The reason we cut it to 12 feet is we want the styrene to overhang the edge. Now you may think, well, how is the styrene going to overhang the edge there? So what we do, hopefully you can see that, I cut one of the edges or one of the sides out of the styrene. Now it takes a little bit of trial and error. You can measure your 11 feet, make a mark on the inside of the styrene and just nib out the corner. The reason we do that is so that that piece of angle fits comfortably inside, overhanging the top. So once we do both sides, we can tack them into place just using CA or super glue, and they're set. Now we do not glue the top edge in. We only put a spot down the bottom, spot in the middle. That will do it. You will still want to have the freedom of having a bit of flexibility up the top here. Once that's set in, I've measured and cut the 11 feet sections. Again, we need to nibble out the edges so that it overlaps, this facing edge overlaps the end of the styrene on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I won't bother doing it on camera. Well, I'll show you how I do one anyway. So what we do is we take one of our 12 feet sections. We can see where we are, make a mark, and we're going to keep this side, but we're going to knock out that side there. So make sure you knock out the correct side. Put my visor on for this. Make a mark on there. Roll it over. Do it from the inside edge. Give that a bit of a cut there. And do inside the V and knock that out. And there you have that lip. So now that hopefully will slot into place. It may need a little fettling, which this one does, so we need to just take out maybe another 0.5 millimetre more or so. And there you have it. Let's have a look here. There we go, that fits in nicely. So both these can be tacked in now. I'm going to go ahead and do all sides here, and we will repeat the process on the personnel door with the number 291 1.5 millimetre angle. Same process, exactly the same. Tack it in with a little bit of CA. Remember, like I said, tack the bottom, tack the middle, don't bother tacking the top on all of them. Okay, so what you can see here, I've framed out all these doorways, and if you remember I said not to tack down the very ends here. So that is loose there, that is loose there, and also the verticals here. Down the other end, I've done the same. Now you may note that here, I've actually put a strip along the bottom, so that's a bit like a kick plate, you could say. What we're going to do now is actually take your sharpened knife, or a sharp scalpel, and we're going to cut a 45 into the overhanging sections here. So we'll just place the knife up on top, go corner to corner, and press cut. Now you may have to do this twice to get the bottom piece out. There we go. And as you can see there, it's a nice miter joint. I'll do the same on the opposite side here. Back around, 45 degrees, press, and you'll hear a click as it cuts through the styrene. That one actually came apart a lot easier. There we go. Once you've done that, take your MEK or your preferred styrene glue, small amount, and what I tend to do is use the back of the hobby knife or the scalpel and just press it into place. Bit of rubbish on the bottom of that from doing the other door. That'll give you a nice seal there. Now that should be enough styrene cement in here to hold that tight. Now I'll do the opposite end. That one cut quite nicely, finished up nice, and I'm just going to turn this around and cut the other way. And there we have it. Nice and neat. Now if you have a look at that there, you can see it's a nice joint in there. Once again, we're just going to hit it with a little bit of MEK or your preferred styrene glue. Now if you do have a little bit of a gap that you're concerned about, you can always go back and put a bit of filler in that. And what I mean by filler is, grab yourself some MEK, all these little offcuts that you get, you can see here, you can drop them into a little glass bottle like an old Tamiya bottle and put some of your glue in there. That'll soften down and become a really good filler. The other option you can do is take a thin slither of this. I'll just demonstrate now. You see it on my finger, and we can actually insert that if you think the gap's too much. Just push it in, give it a dab with the glue again, just to help soften it. Roll it in with the end of the knife, and once that goes off, you can just do a light sand over the miter joint there, and that'll be it. So that's where we are up to. I did say before I'd cut some internal walls or some supports for inside here, and as you can see, I've already marked it up roughly where I want to put these in. So what I've got here is a one end wall, one side wall, internal wall or spacer, another one, and one more for the end. So we've got them all through here, and the end wall of course, and they will be held into place with all these smaller offcuts that I've done before. These are 3/4 inch squares. So basically what we'll be doing is, won't be doing it now, but we'll be doing it after we install the doors, gluing that in and just blocking it out as such. Okay, now I've got our roller door framing in place. What we're going to do is cut some of the evergreen styrene sheet. It's a corrugated sheet, number 4526. What we're going to do first is measure the inside opening of the apertures, both roller doors. Now I'm going to model my building with the roller door at this end down and this one open where the box cars will pull up. So what I've done is measured across here and down here, and I know this is 40mm by 36mm. That'll be a full sheet in there. Down the end here, I'll probably only go about, 1/4 inch deep, so the roller door is not all the way up, but it gives you that feeling that the door is up anyway. So I've already measured on my sheet here a 36mm wide by 40mm up to this first line, and another 1/4 inch or roughly 5 to 6mm above that. Now we're just going to cut that and we'll be back in a moment. Just before we move on, I've got this piece of scrap styrene here. It is corrugated there, but that doesn't matter. This is just going to be for the door. Now, for those who haven't done much scratch building in styrene, what I advise you to do is mark it up as I've done. Run your knife through one way on the cut, where you're going to cut it. Don't try and cut right through it, just mark it a few times, as such. And what you're going to find, this will simply snap. Now that just needs to be sanded there. And then we'll run, I've already scored this once down here, so I can just follow the knife through, as such. And that should just snap off cleanly there too. There we go. A quick sand down the edges, along the bottom, and that should just basically pop into place now. Okay, just needs a bit of fine tuning, a little bit of a sand on the edge there, and that will glue straight in. Okay, now I've inserted all the door framing and what have you, and we've done our roller doors and our personnel door, place that in through the back. We're going to go ahead and put the internal gusseting in. So I've already started on the gusseting, as you can see on these two pieces here. Now I'm going to show you a little trick to keep these nice and square. As you can see, this one's got no gussets, but it's flush to the base here and it's nice and square. Now I've got a little Lego here at home. Well, it belongs to my son now, but I like to use it to make a square. And as you can see, what I've done there is just made up this little frame, nice and rigid, nice and square in the corners, and it will straddle over the top of the model. Now it's imperative that you don't have this touching the base of the card down here, because you don't want to be gluing the Lego to the card. Now I've already cut out some internal wall sections that we've got here, and we're going to drop them in place. So the way I do it is to take a spot of super glue. We'll drop a drop there and a drop up there. And you don't need too much to start with, just a little dab just to get it started. Hold this nice and square, this piece here, against the base of the model. I'm just going to slide that up to roughly where we are. Hold that in there, and we bring that up hard against this bottom edge, hard against the wall there. Press it into place, and that'll keep that nice and tight and square. Now we take our super glue, we can run a bead which will soak into the card, both sides, up against the card there, and we do so on the back side. Now the super glue, as you know, the CA will soak into the card and form a nice solid bond. As you can see, I haven't come right down to the base because we do want to slide that back into place to hold it square. Previously we cut up a few little gussets, so we're going to mount these. So what I tend to do is CA on two sides, roll it around and press fit it into place. Now I like to do one either side. Now that, as you can see, it's nice and square. It'll stand up nice and flush. I'll just pop the other one into the other side again. You don't need any support now because you've got this piece in here I should say. And I like to offset them a little bit. That way you get a little bit of a, I think it becomes a tighter finish. So you can see there, I've inserted this one further up than the other. Now we're just going to mosey along down to the next one, and as you can see, this support here will be over the door. So once again, we're going to drop a few dabs of super glue in. I'm not going to do the bottom here yet. I'll wait till I get this one into place. Again, hold nice and tight, drop it in, make sure it's firm up against this edge here, press fit, And at the same time, we'll drop a couple of gussets in. Now here we're going to go above and below the door. So above the door on this side, press it into place, that'll hold. And the other one, I'll take this away now. I will do a little bit lower into this section here, but it will bridge over the roller door there. But there should be enough meat for the gusset to actually hold on to the base here. You can, if you like, put another gusset further up the top just to hold it in there, which I might just take one of the smaller ones we've cut and throw one closer to the top. And there we have it. Nice, strong, solid structure. The same will apply to the end wall. What I have done already on the rear wall is actually glued one in place already. So that'll sit over there like so. You can see it all comes together nice and neat. Now we need to just place one on the back wall down here. So either I can glue it to this piece or glue it to the end wall here. I find actually gluing it to this wall is going to be a lot easier. Once again, we can use the square, we can bring it right up. Matter of fact, what we can do is drop that piece down underneath, and that'll give us something to keep it nice and square there, and that can be glued straight in to this side. I might turn the whole thing around for you. Straight over the top, as you can see there's a buffer there, so we've got a point where we can put a spot of super glue CA here and a spot down the bottom there and get this into place. So that's what we'll do there. Like I said before, you don't want any of this touching the Lego. And again, remember what your base is, which is this side, this edge here. Keep it nice and square, hold into place, press fit, let it go, and we'll put a couple of gussets in. Once these gussets in, I'll go through and flood it all in with CA. There we go. I'm going to pull that away, run around the whole thing, flood the CA in, it'll soak. And there we have it. That should be nice and square with this edge here now, which it is. Fantastic. The only thing we need to do now is marry this in together as such. Oh, before I do that, you will notice that the door is open here, so we need to put in an internal floor. I've already pre-cut a piece here, which will actually move all this out of the way. And there we go. Now what we will have to do is move that right down so she's flush, and then we go ahead and get all this glued in with another gusset down the base here. Okay, as you can see, I've glued this floor in, and I've put an extra gusset in under the base here, so that'll sit there fairly solidly. Because this is only a low depth building, what I'll intend to do is to just throw some black paint maybe over the back of this area here where the opening is. So it looks like a shadow rather than, you know, seeing this internal frame that we have here. It'll just be a dark area. Keep in mind this here will be under an awning, so you probably won't see too much of that in there anyway. But the amount of flooring we've got in here is enough just to put a few details in there. Alright, we'll go ahead and we'll glue this frame together, or this box together, and we're going to start at one end. We're just going to do a tack, make sure it's nice and flush, then move along to the next one, third, fourth, fifth, and to the very end there, making sure the whole thing's nice and square and flush across the top. Let's go along and put a spot of CA along these edges here. As you can see, none of this internal edges has got CA on it because we want this CA to actually soak in. That'll be plentiful. It may run down the card here. We'll bring it up. Make sure she's nice and square and give it a nice press fit. That's nice and level across there for the front wall, and down the side wall there is nice and square as well. What we'll do here, we're just going to run a little bead down the inside of the wall here. Whoop. Just so we can get it started. And you can actually see the CA run down the wall, right down the line there where this is going to mount. When it gets near the bottom, that's where we'll clasp this together. Run a little bit more down to keep the flow happening. And we're just about there. And we'll bring that up and marry it. Again, squeeze a bit up the top here, let it run down the wall, down near the bottom, and we will squeeze that together. Once we've done all the internal walls here and the inner wall, we'll run through and we'll run beads down each side of the internal gussets. Now for the opposite end, I'm just going to roll it over. And actually put a bit more on this end, and we're just going to marry that into position as such there. Nice and flush. Give it a squeeze. And there we have it, a nice solid fixture. To run the CA down, we'll just roll the model over, squeeze a little bit, let it flow. And we'll get to the end and we'll do each one from this side. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing there, just letting it flow down internally. That one's fine because we've done that one already, but what I will do is from that side, I'll run it from the top down. And we'll do both sides here. So before I put the roof on, I will go through and just paint the back of that wall black with some cheap artist acrylics, nothing fancy, just a quick wipe over with the brush and that'll do it. So that's where we're at. Eventually we'll get that roof into place up here. Now that is oversized, I think. No, it's perfect. I've cut it perfect, which is good, and that'll just sit in there. As you can see, there will be a lip around the edge of the walls here and here, and when we turn it around there will be that lip up the top here as well. Okay, alright, I'll be back after I painted this and we'll get that lid on, or I should say the roof. Okay, as you can see I've got the flooring through here now, and I've actually painted the back of it black. So when you're looking through here, we'll just move that light. Hopefully that lens is not in your way. You can see the whole interior is there a dark black grey colour. Now what we need to do now is, what I've done here is to put in a roof support. So I'm going to move the camera in a little bit closer and we're going to do the opposite end. As usual, I've used Lego. I've just knocked up this little bit of frame here and that will sit there. You'll notice there's a thin piece of grey Lego underneath, and that will just keep this piece up high over the top of the end wall. So what we'll do, we'll drop in a small amount of CA. That'll do. Bring our piece in place. It won't touch. Drop this in and bring it up hard against this piece of Lego here, and that way you know, this being a square here, that piece in there now is perfectly level. What that'll do is support the roof on the very end of the structure. Now we have both roof supports in on the very end walls here, we can go ahead and the sheet I cut earlier for the roof will simply sit into place as such, and that'll complete the main structure of the box. Again, all we're going to do is just give it a light tacking on top of these supports through the middle here and the very ends. Everywhere else we'll run the CA in underneath and in between. Now I've cut this so it's a nice, tight and firm fit. Now I'm just going to press down, and as you can see there's very little gaps at the ends, but it'll form a nice, solid, strong structure. Now there is no CA under here, but what we can do, we can run a bead of CA along the back here. Being a low relief building, this won't be seen. The CA will run inside here. Doesn't matter if you make or you get the CA everywhere on the back. As long as you get enough in through here. A bit of a squeeze, make sure it's in contact. It's pretty good to go. Now you can roll over on the inside of the structure and you can run some CA. What I tend to do is squeeze a little puddle down inside and then let it run throughout the model. We will run now around with the CA and do our other exposed edges where we may need to do a little bit of filing as such, so we can just do this one up here now. And it'll protect the edges too, it'll just make them a lot stronger while handling the model. And I'll just run that bead constantly across the top here. Get a nice bead in through here. So after this, what we're going to do is going to put a few more details on the building. So a couple of conduits, a couple of downpipes, those other little fixtures that we've seen, like light fittings and what have you. Okay, we've got the whole box together with the lid on and everything. That's all ready to go. Now I've already started putting in one of these pipes through here. Now what I've used there is actually evergreen styrene rod number 221, which is 1.2 millimeters in diameter. Now these little stirrups here along the side there is actually evergreen styrene number 101, 0.25 by 0.75 millimeter strip, which I've got here is very, very thin. I've already marked up where I'm going to put the next one in through here, and what I've done is taken a drill bit and I've already marked this off to the top here where I'm going to drill a hole, and this is actually around about 1.3, 1.4 millimeter diameter. So we're just going to, hopefully you can see there, the light's not too bad. I'll bring that around there. I'm just going to drill straight in, straight through the card. And there we go. Now, with this one here, it's got a bend in the top. So the trick is there for bending styrene, like I've done here, is to actually take a glass of water, but that's got to be boiling water. Drop your styrene in, let it sit there for about 30 seconds, pull it out and maybe bend it over a drill bit like so. Eventually it'll bend without snapping. What we're going to do next is insert, just to make sure it fits. Yep, not a problem there at all. Also along the line I've drawn here, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there are a few dots throughout here. Now, as with this one, these are the markings for the stirrup. So the first stirrup is 3.5 feet from the ground using a scale rule, then every other one is 3 feet apart. So there are 6 individual steps there. Now all what I do to cut the stirrups is to place the strip onto the edge here, take my scalpel if I can find it, and we're going to cut them to 1 foot lengths or 3.5 millimeters. I'll get that done off camera, then we'll go ahead and we'll put these onto the model itself. So I've cut my 6 stirrups, which we can see here. They're only small little pieces. And what we're going to do now is just where I've got the cross marks on here, like I said, 3.5 foot up, just a small dab of CA, not too much. Use your scalpel, pick up a piece of this styrene strip, and we're going to glue it in as such. We're going to repeat the process all the way up the line here. And the reason we've got the line there is to make sure we put this on reasonably straight. There's actually probably a little bit too much glue on this one. So what I'm going to do is actually pick it up and move it up to the next one there. And press it down into place. Go back, grab another. We can drop him. Pick up a bit of glue on the bottom, I should say, because there is too much glue there. Sorry if my hand's in the way, but you can see we're just moving these up the model. Just take a bit of glue onto the bottom of that one. Pick it up. And this one's right under the hole at the top here, so pardon my hand burning away. Just to get it nice and square on there. There we go, and we'll put the final one in where we've actually got the glue. If I can pick it up, that is, there we go. I'll come around this way. And, whoop, no, not that time. Want to bounce off. We can drop it down and we'll just hold it into place there. That one's a little bit crooked. Hopefully we can just straighten it. Yep, no worries at all. Now with the pipe, it's got the bend on the end. We're just going to drop that into the hole there and secure that with the CA. There. I'm just going to pull that down over the top. Now you want to press that in eventually so it does secure itself in the hole, nice and reasonably square. You can actually flood this a little bit here, it won't really matter if you get a bit of glue on the model. And we're just going to run that down through there. And what we may do is just tack the bottom one into position. What I am going to use, I'm going to go over to the Contactor Professional here, the MEK. We're just going to drop a bit of glue in at the back of these ones. Push that down. And this will create a better bond than the CA onto the styrene itself. As you can see, it's starting to rise there a bit. I'm just going to bring that down. What would be handy here is a clothes peg, just on the end of the styrene there to hold it into place, but hopefully it won't take too long. Now, I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter now, and what I use for that is a simple pair of nail clippers. I find these actually do the job, and I'm just going to cut it shy of the base of the building. Just get the glue out of the way. You can come down here and just nip it off just shy of the base of the building, about there, and that will do it. The reason we're going to cut that shy is I'm going to be having a concrete infill between the building and the rail itself, so a hard stand. So that's how we do that, and there we have it. It doesn't look too bad, the two conduits. Now on the picture that I'm going to put up now, you'll see that there's a lamp or a spotlight above the roller doors. Now, using the same drill bit as I've used before, we've drilled a hole to the center of the door and 4mm above the actual framing on both these doors here. I'm going to show you another photograph where I've used a tiny little, I don't know if you can see that, it's a 402 LED, and that will be glued into a piece of 1.5mm evergreen channel, which is number 261, and I'll show you a photo of that, the two components together now. Okay, for making the spotlight or the downlight on the outside of the building, you take your 1.5mm channel, evergreen styrene number 261, and we place the 402 LED into the channel itself as such. Now, hopefully you can see that. Hopefully it looks bigger on the screen that you're watching it on. And then we take a dab of super glue and we're going to glue this into position. Now, you want to make sure that the LED is sitting inside the channel. And it doesn't matter if the glue runs down inside the channel along the wires either. Now, I do see I've got a little bit of glue under the end of the channel there, which hopefully isn't a problem. I can lift that off. Yep, I should be able to. And it won't take long for that CA to set over the top of the wires in the channel. We'll see if we can wiggle that off. There we go. And we have that secured in there. I'm just going to take the rule. Hopefully there's no glare on that. And we're just going to trim the channel back to the LED. There we go, we've just taken that little bit off. And using a piece of 1mm by 0.25 styrene, we're going to cap the end off. We'll allow this to go off, then I'll glue that onto the end and trim it up. Now, I've already put one of these together, and you'll see it on the building next. Okay, I've got this LED here that's in the channel, and as you can see, I've painted it black, and all I've used there is a Sharpie to touch it up black. And you've got to make sure you can actually see the globe or the LED, which is on this side, and I've already fed the wires through, so we're just going to pull these through. And this piece of 1.5 channel will fit snugly inside the hole that we've got here. Sorry the light's not the best there. It's awkward to do at the moment. Maybe I can bring that around to the front and you can see a little bit clearer there. Hopefully it doesn't wash the picture out. And we're just going to drop it in so we just have it just proud. Maybe just a tad further. Now if it's not looking too square, you can just give it a bit of a twist. Maybe a pair of needle nose pliers and just actually turn it, or just pull it up a little bit more, give it a twist and push it back in. Now I'm thinking I won't actually CA this into position. The reason being, if you do blow an LED and you have to make a new one, it's going to be easier to pull these out. So eventually just the normal paint that we paint the building with will be enough to hold the LED in place. And there's your wiring here. Now these are only 3 volts, these LEDs, so you will need a resistor on that if you are running it to a normal transformer, or if you're going to use battery power, no more than 3 volts. So that's that one done, and I will end up putting another light above here. So I've already pre-drilled that hole there. It's just a matter of repeating what I've done here at the other end of the doorway. Okay, now we've got the doors in, our pipes in. There's going to be a few more little details to add, and one of them that stands out on the photo is the vent that sits on the building here. Now I've created this little vent. I'll bring it up closer to the camera, hopefully you can see that. And it is made from 3 pieces of evergreen styrene. So the first piece, which is this bottom section here, I'll show you on this diagram here, is number 188, 4.8 by 3.2. The top bit to create the curve is evergreen styrene number 250, 2.5 millimeter quarter round, and a strip on the back there which is 0.75 by 2.5 millimeters, number 135, and that's put together as such. Glue it all together, trim it down, file the ends. Now one thing I have done is I've actually filed out the inside here just with a small flat file, and what that's done is created like an opening. So when we place it on the building as such, you will have this opening just here. So we'll put that into position and we'll go through and put a few other little details in. So to get this correctly in position, I've taken a little bit more Lego. We can place this here and we're just going to tack that on top somewhere there. So again, we'll be using CA to tack that in. So what I'm going to do is actually put a bit of CA on the back so we don't touch the Lego, on the high side behind the quarter round. I'm just going to press that in, move that away, and there we have it in position. Now either side of the vent there is a couple of little, they look like little fuse boxes or something. So for that I'm going to use 1.5 millimeter square styrene, which is number, let me get it, number 153. And we're just going to cut ourselves a couple little strips, one each side of the vent there, and there was another piece that stuck out of the building further up here. So we'll just trim that down with a knife. Now we only want to be about maybe 2 to 3 millimeters in length. We'll take the rule and we'll cut it down to the appropriate lengths. One. 2, and we'll do the same for the top one up here. We may make that one a little bit shorter because it actually protrudes out forward rather than down on the edge of the building. There we go. Now you've probably noticed, or you don't know if you can see that, but they're not exactly square, so we're just going to brush that up with the file. So our 3 pieces have been touched up with a file, so what we're going to do now is just dab a little CA in places and move these into position with the scalpel. Now we want to keep these pretty vertical, or reasonably vertical. So we can check that by using a square right up against it, or the piece of Lego. Yep, that's one. And that's 2. The third one, like I said, actually protrudes outward. So we're just going to try and grab this on the end of the styrene and put it in nice and square, about as such. But that's pretty much it. I'm pretty happy with what we've done there. Now, if these are electrical boxes, we can run some conduits, you know, down through here or up above and into a wall, into another junction box, and that can be made out of 0.64 styrene, and we do the same as what we've done on these pipes here. Little stirrups, you'd use something finer again. You might use 0.5 by 0.25 strip for the stirrups and just run the conduits on that. But as the building is, that's pretty close to how it actually looks when you look at the prototype. So, okay, it's a reverse of the prototype, but you know, we've got the features that that building has got. Next thing we're going to go and do will be scratch building the awning here. Now that's going to be in the next part. So that's it for part 2, adding the details, putting the lights in and what have you. So we're going to leave it at that, and we'll be back soon with part 3, the awning and the painting.